This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
6 after the hour on this Tuesday. Well, Canada. Oh, you know, some people, to hell with prosperity. You know, some people just cannot stand prosperity. The Liberals have swept into power in landslide elections, if you didn't hear this. It's kind of interesting considering Canada has been doing quite well, actually, with fracking and mining and all these things going on. Well, Junior Trudeau, well, I call him Junior because his father, Pierre Trudeau, was the Prime Minister of Canada back in the day. Justin Trudeau, 43 years old, former school teacher, son of the late Prime Minister, will become the second youngest leader in Canada's history. Yeah, he has re-energized the Liberal Party since its devastating electoral losses just 4 years ago. He promises to raise taxes on the rich and, well, just about everybody else. He's going to run deficits intentionally for the next 3 years to boost government spending. Considering their healthcare system's already broke, that's a good idea. His late father, who took office in 1968 and led Canada for, into the early 80s, is it's a storied name in Canadian history, responsible for the country's version of the Bill of Rights. He's one of the few Canadian politicians actually known in America. But there it is. Canada has shifted to the center right under Harper, who has lowered sales and corporate taxes, avoided climate change legislation that was going to hinder his economy and clash with the Obama administration of the Keystone Pipeline. The Trudeau victory is expected to ease tensions with the U.S., although Trudeau supports the Keystone Pipeline as well. He argues relations should not hinge on the project. Harper clashed with the Obama administration over other issues, including the recently reached Iran nuclear deal that he says is wrong. I do not see, I think this is, it's a risky place for Canada, to say the least. It's a risky place for him to be, to say the least. Now, going to risky places as a politician is, people, well, let me give you an example. Stephen Harper, who has been the Prime Minister of Canada for the last 9 years, the Conservative, who has been in charge there while Canada's economy has been booming and their exports of oil and so forth are booming, and their exports of energy and so forth to China are booming. He was so desperate that he visited districts he won in the 2011 election in an attempt to hang on to them. On Saturday, he even posed with Toronto's former crack-smoking mayor, Rob Ford. Rob Ford, Big Rob, looked, the guy crack-smoking, dancing, happy mayor of Toronto. Yeah. That's what Harper was willing to do. Here in America, we see politicians do similar silly things. I mean, some might even actually, like fake accents and pretend to be something they're not. Let me give you an example. Alex, go ahead and roll that.
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy. I don't believe he brought me this far to leave me. And the chair of all the mayors in the country, Mayor Palmer from Trenton, New Jersey.
I mean, seriously? So anyhow, Hillary was speaking to a Southern crowd, and suddenly she had this thick Southern drawl. It's kind of like when Barack Obama gets in front of the churches and does his black preacher routine.
Oh, yeah, she was even doing a little bit of that as well.
Oh, good Lord.
Well, and then let me tell you something. I lived in Mississippi for quite some time, and that's not a Southern accent.
That's good to know, honey. Yeah, it's good stuff there. Yeah, completely fake, completely affected. How far will they go? Well, apparently they'll go just about anywhere in the attempt to dig a vote or two out of the woodwork, as it were. So, anyhow, it's Tuesday here on the Steve Gruber Show. Thanks for stopping in. This part of the program brought to you by Consumers Mutual Insurance, a different kind of insurance company. You can find out more at consumersmutual.org. So big changes in Canada. Here in the United States, big changes likely in the next 24 hours in the race for president as well. You see, the Washington Post went right out there and published a report, a draft report, a draft story that was not supposed to be published, that Joe Biden is in the race. So maybe WAPO knows something we don't. The Washington Post might know something we don't, and that is that Biden is getting in today or tomorrow. I've said for a long time he's going to get in the race. I guess we're going to find out now, aren't we? We're going to find out more if Joe Biden, it's going to change things. It's going to change things, and we'll see how it's going to play out. He's been talking about this since the death of his son earlier this year when Bo dies. So we'll keep an eye on that. Hey, here's something I was going to tell you about earlier, and I forgot to mention it, but I have this revelation for you. And it's a big revelation that you're probably not going to hear this on any other program, but I'm going to share a huge revelation, and I hope that you can share it with your liberal friends. I hope that you can share it with your liberal friends and share it with folks who just don't seem to understand. But in Budapest, in Hungary, the government there reporting yesterday, it has successfully shut down the border with Croatia and stopped the influx of migrants and refugees from the wars in the Middle East, in Syria and so forth. Only 41 people crossed into the EU member states Sunday, the government said. The border closure is working. It has effectively stopped the illegal border crossing. You know what they did to stop the illegal border crossings? Do you know?
I do. They built a really big wall.
They built a wall and they built a fence.
Mm-hmm.
And it's stunning, isn't it? They were having thousands of people flood across their border. But the Hungarian government determined to keep the measure in place as long as is needed. We are continuously monitoring the situation at the Slovenian, Croatian, and Serbian borders and are ready to react to any situation which might develop. But they built a wall and a fence, and by gosh, walls and fences apparently work. I mean, if they didn't, why would you have a fence around the White House? I mean, if fences don't stop anybody, what's the point in having one?
Mm-hmm.
There's a little food for thought. Yeah, the Hungarians have stopped the influx of illegals into their country by building a fence. See how simple that is? See, it's so simple it's stupid. It's so simple and common sense grounded that it's just that easy. 14 after the hour. Let's see. The phone number here is 888-900-9966. You can find out more at stevegruber.com. The hotline, like I said, 888-900-9966. You can also go to the Steve Gruber Show Facebook page. I would appreciate it if you did. You can find my daily posts there about the different topics, and click like and tell your friends. We'll be right back on a Tuesday.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
You know, reading to your children when they're young is one of the best ways to give your kid an advantage going forward. Kids learning to read, certainly at an early age, second and third grade, gives them an opportunity to do things that those that fall behind in reading usually don't get the opportunity for later in life. And with that in mind, our next guest, State Rep Amanda Price, joining us, a Republican from Park Township. Amanda, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, you're chair of the House Committee on Education. In your district, the 89th district, runs from north of Holland to Grand Haven, and in that part of the state. And your dedication to literacy is something you're focusing on throughout your tenure as a state rep. Am I correct?
It is. Well, for the last 2 terms, at least. It was not a focus on my first term. I think became acquainted with the statistics of where our kids are in reading in Michigan, and that kind of captured my heart. And I think that's when I took a deeper dive into knowing more about literacy in Michigan.
All right. Well, yeah. How did you? I mean, my mother, who taught 5th grade for 3 decades, would spend summers, and I've told this story before, but I would often be home in the summer when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, whatever, and there'd be kids in my house that I didn't know because she was so dedicated to them to make sure they could learn to read and write. And I've met some of those people later in life that are adults now who said that her efforts changed their lives because they were able to read. And as you wrote in a guest column here recently, that difference of being able to read and write opens so many more doors for people as they get older.
Yeah, I mean, the statistics are certainly there, but I have a similar story to your mother. My father-in-law, after I first introduced this legislation 2 years ago, came to me and said, and he usually doesn't do this. He came to me and said, "Thank you for doing this. It's really important." I did not know how to read until a teacher identified me in 8th grade because he had moved from school to school to school all his life, and no one caught on to the fact that he couldn't read until he was in 8th grade. So I don't tell that story very often because it's a personal family story, but it's something then that got attention when he was a little bit older and helped him further his career and his education, obviously.
And I mean, it's just so important for people to be able to, just fill out a job application, to look at the internet and figure out what's going on in the world, or find out where the opportunities are, or to go to a community college even to better your education. You can't do any of those things if you can't read and write well.
Right. And I think there's a recent study by the Annie Casey Foundation. If you can't read by 3rd grade, you're 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. If you're African American or Hispanic, you're 8 times more likely to drop out of high school. And that just, it sets you up for the rest of your learning, because as we know, you read to learn, and then you learn to read and you read to learn. And so if you don't have that same skill set, the rest of your primary education, you're going to be at a disadvantage.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do we need to do? I mean, Michigan's falling a bit behind. And, we're falling a bit behind other states in as far as, and one of the places you test is in 3rd grade, right? And so you want to make sure that on the National Assessment of Academic Progress that we do well, but Michigan ranks 38th in 4th grade reading now, so not a proud place to be. How do we do better?
Well, I think that's part of the recommendations in the legislation, a hyper-focus on those areas, but what the legislation does is ask that kids be assessed at kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, so right at the beginning of the year, see where you are in reading. If you are finding some deficiencies, shore those up with the teacher using what we always call phonics, or this literacy-based approach to reading, and then those kids will have a better opportunity to succeed. There's some other recommendations in the legislation as well, one of which happens to be appropriately teaching teachers how to teach reading. And what I hear continually from principals and superintendents is that a lot of young people are coming out of colleges not knowing how to teach reading.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have another piece of legislation that will focus on that as well.
It's stunning. You mean building all these fancy schools and throwing money at it doesn't teach kids to read? I'm stunned, man. Okay, I'm being a bit sarcastic, maybe. But no, the basics of teaching somebody to read means sitting down and teaching somebody to read, and teaching the alphabet, and teaching the sounds that they make. It's phonics, and it's basic, and it's basic blocking and tackling is all it is. I mean, it's the fundamentals, right?
Yeah, and I'm a little mystified as to why we got away from that. But you mentioned the NAEP scores were 38th in the country, losing ground, one of only a few states that are actually losing ground in our literacy. And our MEP scores, which are our old state assessment tests, have, so depending on what statistic you're looking at, 30% 80% under the MAPE. 70% of kids in Michigan are not reading under the NAEP test at grade level proficiency.
Yeah, we have to do better than that. We have to, and it just and I go back to fundamentals. It's not about fancy schools. It's not about a lot of things. It's about fundamentals and paying attention, I suppose, to our kids and making sure we have a chance to teach them to read. And for a lot of folks, it starts at home. And I know that the demands on time is different than it used to be, but we should teach our kids to read. It should be our number one thing. State Representative Amanda Price, I'll give you 15 seconds for the last word.
Well, thank you. I think technology has changed a lot of our lives, but it hasn't removed the necessity to read. And so wherever you can encourage your children to read, whether it's online, getting a newspaper, going to the library, I think it's really important that focus needs to be in our children's lives.
I happen to agree with you completely. Thank you for stopping in, Amanda. I greatly appreciate it. State Rep Amanda Price from Park Township in the 89th District. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's Tuesday. A little bit of news, and then we'll be right back.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
Well, I've been looking real hard and I'm trying to find a job, but it just gets getting tougher every day. But I got to do my part, 'cause I know in my heart I got to please my sweet and baby.
When did America stop being a nation of laws?
Ain't superstitious and I don't get to spend.
I mean, seriously, the rule of English law is what separated the West from, from the rest of the world, frankly. Nobody was above the law, and that was the way it's supposed to be. And yet, in this country today, in America today, we have, 350 sanctuary cities where, illegal aliens can run wild and it makes no difference. Nobody enforces the law. In fact, you're specifically not allowed to enforce the law. Some law enforcement agencies have their hands tied in pursuit of liberal policies that are not doing us any favors, that are weighing down the infrastructure and the safety nets and the support that's available to people, being weighed down, making it dangerous for everybody. But now, each month, thousands of illegal aliens are released right out onto the streets. Hans von Spakovsky is the manager and election law reform initiative and senior legal fellow. He joins us to talk more about it. Hans, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me.
So why are these sanctuary cities on the rise, and why are people allowing? I mean, we know what happened with Kate Steinle in San Francisco. Everybody knows that. Barack Obama's yet to call the family, but everybody knows what happened there. And yet, we've got sanctuary cities, at least 3 that I know of here in Michigan, maybe more. Why is it okay for people to basically thumb their nose at the law?
Well, it isn't. But the problem, of course, is that the Obama administration refuses to do anything about this. And most of the urban centers where they have sanctuary policies in place are, controlled by one particular political party, and they want amnesty for illegals. And the result, frankly, is the victimization of Americans who are having crimes committed against them. They're being murdered, raped, assaulted, and these are all crimes that would not have occurred except for these sanctuary policies.
But how are we, the American people, allowed to sit? See, here's the thing. We hear this all the time, that the immigration system is broken, and I don't believe that. I don't believe that for a second. I believe our enforcement is broken. I believe that we are all too willing to say, well, we don't want to enforce the law. I don't think there's anything wrong with the immigration system. I know people that have been through it. I know how high the bar is for background checks and paperwork you have to fill out, and criminal backgrounds and health screenings and all of these things. There's nothing wrong with any of that if you actually do those things. But when you just let people come through willy-nilly and you don't enforce your own laws, then you have a crisis. But let me be clear about this, Hans. This crisis is of our own making. There is no actual crisis. If we just enforce the laws that exist, the crisis would conclude.
Oh, no, listen, you are absolutely correct. It annoys me, too. Every time I hear people say the immigration system is broken, it really annoys me because it's not. We actually have a very good set of laws on the books. There's a whole federal system of immigration laws. But you're right, we don't enforce it. And I'll give you just one example of something else that really annoys me, Steve. Is look, anytime anyone says, well, we've got to provide amnesty to the 11 to 12 million here because we just don't have the resources to deport them all. You don't need to do that. There's a law in the books that says that it punishes employers if they knowingly hire illegal aliens. If the federal government would enforce that law with the help of the states, so that illegals would have a tough time getting jobs, 3/4 of them would self-deport and leave the country.
Well, no question. And again, that brings me back to, are we a country of laws or not? Are we a country? I mean, that's the way we were always taught. America is a nation of laws. And so that, one group of people is not above the other. Laws made people equal. I think Samuel Colt did a better job. But laws make people equal. But if you don't apply them, then you have anarchy and chaos.
No, we do. But look, that has been a hallmark of this administration and, frankly, of the whole liberal progressive movement. I mean, look, it's very clear that over the past 7 years, this administration has believed if there's a particular law in place they don't like, they just go around it. They break it, they twist it, and they dare anyone to do anything about it. I mean, that's why 27 states sued the Obama administration after he announced and put in place his immigration amnesty plan. That's the first time in American history that a majority of the states have sued the federal government over an action like that.
Right. So I guess my question is, you watch the lawlessness of this administration and all over the place, frankly, on a variety of fronts. How do you prioritize, where we're getting, where we're getting screwed? Because, just letting illegals come in, without documentation, without health screenings, without proper background checks and so forth. I mean, they want to background check Americans all the time. Maybe we should background the checks of people that aren't Americans. Maybe we should do, instant background checks on people crossing the border with, who knows what kind of a felony arrest history and so forth. Wouldn't that make more sense?
Oh, it would. And in fact, I mean, look, you've put your finger on one of our biggest problems. The crime wave that has been generated by people who are illegally in this country is really astounding. The General Accounting Office did a study a couple of years ago. They looked at the criminal histories of over 55,000 illegal aliens who were in prison. They averaged 13 criminal offenses each. So think about how many crimes they committed each.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So think about how many crimes those illegal aliens committed before they finally were caught and actually put in prison.
Exactly.
Hundreds of thousands of crimes.
We're on the line with Hans von Spakovsky. And, it's stunning to me, but sanctuary cities are on the rise. Thousands of criminals being released into the U.S. And make no mistake, it's all part of this effort to turn Texas into a blue state and turn America into a socialist state, as near as I can figure.
Well, in fact, I have to agree with you again. Look, we've seen the latest of that out in California. Remember, California just a week ago signed a bill to automatically register people who have driver's licenses in the states. Well, in this year, 2015, more than half of the driver's licenses issued in California have been to illegal aliens.
And so they're automatically registered to vote.
Yes, and supposedly the state is relying on them to opt out, to say, oh, no, I want you to cancel my registration. Well, we know that that's not going to happen, and that this is clearly a deliberate intent.
It's voter fraud.
Yeah, but they want people who are illegal in the country to register and vote because they believe it will advantage them politically.
Clearly. Hans, always a pleasure. I appreciate you taking the time to stop in today, and we'll talk sometime soon.
Thank you.
There you have it. Hans von Spakovsky. Easy for me to say. It's Tuesday here on the program. Hey, it's the Common Sense Hotline if you want to get on board, 888-900-9966. And if you want Spartan jewelry after the big win on Saturday, well, Kevin Wheat is the guy to find. WheatJewelers.com. WheatJewelers.com. Kevin Wheat has all your stuff to celebrate that big win. 41 after now on the Steve Gruber Show.
The Steve Gruber Show. American values with Midwestern common sense.
Hold your head up. Hold your head up. Hold your head up. Hold your
All right, well, welcome to it, my friends. It's 45 after the hour. We've all been touched by it. We've all been touched by cancer one way or the other, either directly or indirectly. I personally am a survivor from a long time ago. I was very young, and so I have a deep appreciation and have been involved with fundraisers and so forth for cancer and battling cancer. And I know people at this moment that are battling the best they can. Joining me now, Dr. James Allen Hayman from the University of Michigan, and the American Cancer Society of Radiation Oncology is hosting its annual meeting where top cancer research is being unveiled. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
As I said there, I have a personal connection that dates back to me being 17 years old, so I have an idea. But I've been healthy for a long time, and I know that I know people right now that are battling cancer, as I'm sure you do as well. And I guess my question is: are we better off today than we were a year ago, or 5 years ago, or 10 or 15? Where are we?
Well, I think that it's clear that a lot of advances have been made in the field of oncology, cancer care, and in radiation oncology in specific. But I think that, there's still a lot of progress, certainly, that needs to be made. And so, we're making advances, maybe not as fast in all areas of cancer care as we would like, but we're certainly making advances.
So what are some of the areas where you see... You see more progress in another place? I mean, there are some cancers today that, if detected early, you have a very solid chance of surviving that, 25 years ago, you were in a much different situation. Where are you seeing the best advancement? Where are you seeing the most promising research?
Well, I think within my field, within radiation oncology, there are some newer techniques that are coming out to treat early-stage lung cancer, for instance, with just a handful of treatments with very high success rates. And an area that I'm specifically interested in is as it relates to quality and safety. And so there are a number of initiatives that ASTRO, which is our specialty society, that's the meeting that's going on right now, that we're highlighting. So those are really exciting for me. I think that's something that touches all cancer patients.
I think it does, and obviously there at the University of Michigan and elsewhere around the state, there are some facilities that, specialize in oncology and have specialists like yourself that are on staff to address these sorts of things. Okay, so let me ask you this, Doctor. Is there a day in our future where what you're doing in radiation oncology or in other approaches to these diseases, these devastating illnesses, that you think we really can make it something that is a thing of the past, or is that just wishful thinking?
Well, I think our hope is, cancer is many, many different diseases, and so it takes many, many different approaches to treat the disease. But I think, so it's hard to know whether or not we'll be able to cure cancer. But I think our hope, my hope, for the future is that people can live with cancer as more of a chronic condition and have a very good quality of life and go about living their lives as best they can. So that would be my hope for the future.
I think one of the things is that clearly the advancement in that we read about out here, the rest of us that aren't in the business that you are, if you will, sir, is that we see that there's a great advancement in detection, in finding the disease, certainly at much earlier times than we did in years past, which obviously early detection, as we have all heard, is the key to success and survival many times.
Right. I think I would definitely agree. I think that preventing cancer is obviously the best approach. But if someone has a cancer, detecting it early and treating it early will certainly result in better outcomes, both in terms of curing the patient and also allowing them to have a good quality of life. Have minimal side effects associated with the treatment that they need to receive.
And so we push forward and hope for the very best. We're on the line with Dr. James Allen Hayman from the University of Michigan. The American Society of Radiation Oncology hosting its annual meeting. Top cancer specialists and researchers on location there to unveil new research. And Doctor, I guess we wish you the very best and success because it touches so many people and it touches everybody's families. I mean, everybody knows somebody, like I said, directly or indirectly, that is affected by cancer during their lifetime, and usually several people along the way that we are aware of that have cancer and have to battle, and either they win or they don't. So we appreciate the work you're doing. When does this get-together start, and when does it, how long are you guys all together?
Sure, the meeting started on Sunday, and we'll wrap up tomorrow. It's in San Antonio, Texas. This year, and we get about 10,000 people who attend this meeting. So it's really one of the, it is the leading radiation oncology meeting in the world. So it's an exciting time for us.
All right, Doctor. Well, I greatly appreciate you taking the time to visit with us a little bit today, and we wish you, obviously, we wish you the very best and success in finding new treatments and ways to cure people.
Sure. Thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure.
There you have it. Dr. James Allen Hayman, everybody, from the University of Michigan, down in San Antonio, Texas. 10,000 of the best and the brightest gathered down there to talk about radiation oncology. And like I said, I know a couple of people right now that are battling hard against cancer, and I think most people, have been touched by cancer in their lives. And so I think it's a personal issue for many of us. And, it's something that... Now, there's a place where I can get behind spending some money, some government money on research and so forth. You see, that makes sense to me. Those sorts of things make sense. There is a time and a place to spend government money, and that would be one of them in my book. It's Tuesday. We'll have some final thoughts and some final bits of fun right after this on The Steve Gruber Show.